Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be me ranking every single eyeshadow palette that I have bought this year. I have some piles here of my palettes that I've purchased and they are ranked. I went through them, ranked them all, and as you can see I have a new background. So I didn't like the background that I had. I just felt like it was really boring and I wanted to change it up. So I have this going on now, and the goal was to be like centered in the middle of that, up nice and close, so it was just this behind me, but I underestimated how much space would be shown on camera. So the rest of this blank area here will get filled up eventually. I just kind of have to gather more like cute little things and pictures and postcards and posters to put up behind me. I'm very excited for where it's going to go. You have a little Groot here and you can see like all my lipsticks. So yeah, I'm really excited about this background. I really enjoy this new setup. My cat just jumped up like right here next to me. There he is. Wow. All right, well, he's just gonna be chaotic back here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started now. The palettes are ranked from least favorite to most favorite. Now, there's none in here that I actually dislike. What is going on? Hi, bud. Hi, Kunabug. So there's no palettes in here that I actually dislike. I enjoy all these palettes for one reason or another. I wouldn't buy a palette that I thought that I would dislike. Most of the palettes that I have bought so far this year have been palettes from brands that I know the formula already and I know that I will like it, or palettes from brands that I have seen a lot of reviews on and I kind of have a feeling of the formula and know that it would be something that I would like. And I do also want to say that most eyeshadows I can get to work for me, even if they aren't a formula that I particularly love. I can get it to work. So I don't dislike any of the palettes here, and this is a lot more palettes than I thought that I bought this year. A little ashamed of that, but that's okay. They're eyeshadow palettes, it's fine. So let's just jump right in. So I don't know how many I have. Let me count real quick. So I have 15 eyeshadow palettes. Coming in at spot number 15, I have the Morphe 39A Dare to Create eyeshadow palette. And the reason why I have this at the very last spot, it is a beautiful palette. I love this color scheme. It's very basic with some pops of color, which is typically the types of color schemes that I prefer in an eyeshadow palette. But the reason why I have this ranked at the very bottom is because I have only used this once. I've only used this once so far this year. I literally just did a look with this really super deep, almost black brown shimmer shade here. And the reason why I haven't played around with it so far is because after I bought this, I just kept getting more palettes that were more exciting to me and wanting to play around with those more than this bad boy. So that is why I haven't really played around with this yet. And I am finally, after I finish my Colourpop Pretty Guardian palette series over on my Instagram, I'm going to play around with this for a little bit, and then I'm going to be done with my palette series for a while. Just gonna take a little bit of a break. I miss playing with all the other palettes that are in my collection. So sadly, this is coming in at number 15, but I do like this. I do enjoy the Morphe formula. I think it is pretty good. It's not the best eyeshadow formula I've ever tried, but it's not the worst. So number 15. Next is one that kind of made me a little bit sad and like shocked to find that it was at this spot, and that is the Natasha Denona Safari palette. And the reason why this is coming in at number 14, we all know the story of this falling by accident from my boyfriend's hands and all the colors falling out and just kind of shattering everywhere, and then me having to put it all back together in the correct order. But I think the reason why this is ranking so low is because it is an all matte palette, and typically I don't go for all matte looks. Now I know what you're thinking, Emily, you have an all matte look on today. No, there are micro shimmers in this yellow shade all over my lid, so it's not all matte. And I don't know, I just am not as big of a fan of this as I thought that I would be. This top row, these 4 cool toned deep shades here, don't perform as well as I wished that they would have, which I did know that these 4 shades did kind of have a bad reputation going into purchasing this eyeshadow palette, but it just isn't what I typically prefer in an eyeshadow palette. So that is why this is coming in at number 14. Coming in at number 13, we have the Zoeva Screen Queen eyeshadow palette. This I got in a BoxyCharm a few months ago before I even moved, as we were still at my boyfriend's parents' house. And this is coming in at number 13 because, like the Morphe 39A, I really haven't gotten the chance to sit down and really use it yet. This color scheme to me is so beautiful. It gives me very 20s Hollywood vibes, and I think that that was kind of like the goal of this eyeshadow palette. Just everything about this gives me those vibes. The color story, I do think it is a really beautiful color story, and I do enjoy the formula, but there is only one matte shade in this palette, and then a more darker satiny shade in the matte shade is this really light shade over here. So I have to pair this with another palette, and now that I'm thinking about this, this might pair really well with the Natasha Denona Safari palette, because that is an all matte palette and this is an all shimmer palette. So I might play around, I will be playing around with this some more just to get some use out of it and really lock in my opinion on this. It is a really beautiful palette. I really do like it. I think that the names of the shades are beautiful. We have Hollywood influenced, sensory overload, eye of a painter, relentless perfectionism. I think this would have ranked higher if I had used it more, but because I haven't really used it all that much, it is at number 13. At number 12, we have the ColourPop Villains Misunderstood palette. And again, I think this is a beautiful palette. The packaging on this is so pretty, like this holographic background. I think that the art is so cool on this little guy. I just really think it's a pretty palette. The reason why this is, again, ranking so low is because there aren't that many matte shades. It is a shimmer focused palette. There are only 4 matte shades. So we have the shade No Spots, Devious, Tragic, and 101, which are matte shades, which there are only 4 matte shades, but it's kind of a straightforward palette. So you open it and you're like, okay, transition shade, crease shade, deepening shade, brow bone shade, and then throw a shimmer on the lid, and that's your entire look, which I do enjoy that palette for that reason, and I do think that the color scheme in this is really pretty. But why this is ranking so low is because there are so many deeper shimmery shades. I lied, there's another matte shade, this dark blue right here, but I feel like that's not really a shade that most people reach for that often. So, but why I think this is ranking so low for me is because there are so many dark shimmery shades down here, and then after these, if you take away these 4, these are not the type of shimmery shades that I typically reach for. So these 2 are really gorgeous, kind of goldy shimmery shades, and then these 2, Mongrels and Blossom, this one and that one, are very similar. So it's just not something that checks all the boxes for me. It's a really beautiful palette, and I did enjoy doing my palette series on this over on my Instagram a few months ago when I first got this, and I do enjoy using this palette. It's just not my perfect palette. Coming in at number 11, we have the Becca Pearl Glow Shimmering Eye Palette. I picked this up from, I forgot I took a shade out of it. Oh no, let me dig it out real quick. The only reason I took this shade out of this palette is because I wanted to see if I knew how to depot an eyeshadow. I do. I can do it. I just didn't really know how, so I was kind of testing it out. And it kind of fit the color scheme that I have going in my single shadow palette over here. So that's the only reason why I took that shadow out of this palette. So this is a really interesting curated color scheme. So these 6 shades in the middle here are some of the most unique, glittery, sparkly shades that I have ever seen in my life. They're these beautiful glittery topper shades, but it's like that eye safe glitter. So they aren't really like chunky flecks of glitter, but it's definitely glitter that you can see in these, and they are more topper shades besides these 2 deeper shades here at the bottom. Again, I think this is ranking so low for me because there are only 2 matte shades, and it is this dark chocolate brown called Coconut Shell and this dark black called Exotic Black Pearl. So I think that is why it is ranking so low for me. I do really enjoy this palette. The shade that fell on the floor, called Tahitian, is such a beautiful shade. I actually love that shade. I think it's my favorite shade from this palette. That is why this is coming in at number 11. Coming in at number 10, we have the ColourPop Disney Designer Collection Midnight Masquerade eyeshadow palette. First of all, I want to appreciate the artwork on this bad boy again. The inside artwork is really what gets me. I think it is so beautiful. And then this is what the palette looks like. So this one is definitely more matte heavy, which honestly is what I prefer in an eyeshadow palette. I would prefer to have a few more mattes than shimmer shades in the eyeshadow palette. And it does have 2 pressed glitters in it, which I don't actually hate. I know so many people are so against having pressed glitter shades in an eyeshadow palette, but it doesn't really bother me that much. I'll use it. Yes, I would probably like it a little bit better if it was replaced by like shimmer shades, but I don't hate it and it doesn't bother me that much. I will still buy an eyeshadow palette that has a pressed glitter shade in it. This is a gorgeous palette. I haven't done a palette series with it yet, but I have gotten some use out of it and I think it performs really well. It performs like a ColourPop eyeshadow palette, which I do enjoy ColourPop eyeshadow palettes. So that is why this palette is coming in at number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe palette volume 2. So we all know what this bad boy looks like. I enjoy this palette. I haven't done a lot of looks with this yet, but I've done more than the 2 palettes I've only used once. But I do like this palette. I love warm toned eyeshadow palettes. I love like hot fiery shades on my eyes because I feel like it makes my eyes pop a lot. So I do really enjoy this palette and I am super excited to start using it during fall because something about this palette screams fall to me. I don't know if it's because we have these like red kind of berry tones and oranges and like browns here. This palette is just going to be a fall palette for me. I can already tell, so I'm very excited to use this more during fall, and that is why this is coming in at number 9. Next, we have the saddest palette in my collection, and that is my Natasha Denona Mini Lila palette. Now, my dog did chew this up. We have talked about this already on my channel, and it is just really sad looking, but I loved doing my palette series with this little eyeshadow palette. I loved the looks that I created with this. Although there are only 2 shimmer shades and 3 matte shades, there's only 5 shades total in this palette. I think it is so beautiful, and you can actually get a lot of different types of looks from this palette. So you can get something more wearable with these down here. You can get something a little bit more colorful with these on this side, the more purple shades, and I just think this is a beautiful palette and I have really enjoyed using this. So that is why this is coming in at number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have the Natasha Denona Tropic palette. This I have also done a palette series with on my makeup Instagram account, and I really enjoy this palette. It is one of the more fun palettes in my collection, and I was a little bit nervous going into this palette because I have heard the whisperings about this bottom row, as we all have, saying that it is like the worst quality ever. But I don't agree with that. These 2 shades right here, this shimmery green and this shimmery blue, aren't amazing, I will admit, but I could get them to work. It was almost like the first time I used it and swatched it, it developed hard pan, but then if I kind of got past that hard pan layer, they worked really well, especially this blue shade. This purple shade right here did live up to my preconceived notions of this palette. It does not perform the best, but this blue and then this kind of silvery minty shade right here worked really well. The rest of the palette is beautiful. It is very my sort of color scheme, with being matte heavy, a few fun pops of shimmers and warm tones. So that is why this palette came in at number. We have another ColourPop palette. I bought a lot of ColourPop palettes this year. This is the Mulan palette, and I also love the artwork on this. ColourPop just really knocks it out of the park with the design of their palettes, and this is coming in so high up on this list for me because of the really unique glitter shades in this palette. So the glitter shades in this palette, I think there is 4 of them. There is 4 of these kind of glitter shades, but something about these glitter shades have like a gel base to them, and they have more of a pigmented base to them, and they don't apply like a typical ColourPop pressed glitter. There is something different about them that made working with them so beautiful. It was a beautiful experience to work with these glitter shades. I love that this palette is organized with some more warm tones on this side and cool tones on this side. It made putting together looks really easy for me, and this is just a really beautiful palette. So that is why it is coming in at number 7. At number 6, we have the Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina eyeshadow palette. Now, I bought this palette right at the beginning of the year, and I did looks using every single shimmer shade on this top row, and I really enjoy this palette. It lives up to my Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow formula expectations, and I think that the color scheme is really gorgeous. I would never ever ever buy any of the Norvina pressed pigment palettes because there's just like too much going on there, but I think that this original Norvina eyeshadow palette in the Anastasia Beverly Hills line knocked it out of the park. This is a beautiful palette, and it gives you very, very soft looks, and I think that it pairs really well with the soft glam palette as well. So that is why this is coming in at number 6. Did I miscount? Because this is number 5. I think I lost count somewhere. This is number 5, or I counted wrong from the beginning. If that happened, there will have been numbers on the screen telling you what number we were at the entire time. So this is coming in at number, oh no, this is number 5. Yeah, at number 5. At number 4, we have the Natasha Denona Love palette. And I'm just now realizing the back of my palette looks really weird, and I couldn't tell you why. But I love this palette. This I bought around Valentine's Day when it launched, and I have gotten so much use out of this eyeshadow palette. This is such a me color story. I love these red pink tones with the shimmers and the pretty glittery top coats that are in this palette. This is the most amazing silver eyeshadow I have ever tried in my entire life. This is such a beautifully curated eyeshadow palette. So that is why it is coming in at number 4 for me. Coming in at number 3, surprise, surprise, my Pure X rawbeautykristi eyeshadow palette. This was probably the most sought after palette release so far this year, and I am so glad that I was able to get my hands on it in the first launch. This, I don't even know what I can say about this palette that I haven't already said in other videos. The formula in this is so buttery smooth. The shimmer shades are beautiful. There are only 2, but I find that they're really versatile. You can build them up so they are fully opaque shimmer shades, or you can use them as glittery top coat shades. But I just love this palette. Everything about it is so beautifully curated, and I cannot think of someone more deserving than Kristi to have created this eyeshadow palette. Coming in at number 2, kind of a shocker considering it is the most recent eyeshadow palette to my collection, but that is the ColourPop Pretty Guardian eyeshadow palette. It is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, and I just want to show you this real quick. It is so cute. I love this eyeshadow palette. This is a true pastel eyeshadow palette. So many people said that the quality of this did not live up to ColourPop, you know, but I disagree with that. I think it is really pretty. I think it is such a gorgeous eyeshadow palette. This is basically the only pastel eyeshadow palette that I have in my entire collection that I can think of. Well, besides my Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette that does lean a little bit more pastel, but this is like my true pastel eyeshadow palette. I love matte eyeshadow with those micro shimmers in it. I know so many people hate that type of eyeshadow, but I personally really enjoy it. I think that it's really versatile. I think that it's a way that you can get more uses out of a single eyeshadow, because you can use it as a matte, but you can also use it as like a shimmer shade, and I just really enjoy it. There is one Super Shock shadow in this palette, which is the shade right here called Silver Millennium, and there is one pressed glitter, which I don't know how to pronounce, Mare Serenitatis. I literally don't know how to pronounce it, but I found that it was very similar to the Mulan pressed glitters, so I don't mind that it's in here. And then everything else in this palette is just really, really nice. So that is why this is my second most favorite eyeshadow palette that I have bought this year. Ranking number 1 also has a sad story to it and kind of came in as a little bit of a shock. This is my e.l.f. Retro Paradise palette, and I want to show it to you first. There are 4 shades missing from it. That is because when my Natasha Denona Safari palette had the accident that it did, this was also involved in that accident, and sadly these 4 shades completely 100% shattered everywhere. And that was so heartbreaking to me because the shade Disco here and the shade Sip Sip here were actually my 2 favorite shades in the palette and what really made this eyeshadow palette stand out to me. So if for some reason I can ever pick this up again and kind of get it back into my life, its full version, I definitely will. But this palette was just so good. It really exceeded all the expectations that I had coming from e.l.f. e.l.f. is not known for their eyeshadow formula. They're not known for having the most easy to work with eyeshadow formula. But this is so good. The shimmers are beautiful. All the shimmers look so gorgeous on the eye. And the mattes worked really well, including this deep blue down here, which really was what shocked me, that e.l.f., who notoriously has a pretty terrible eyeshadow formula, was able to create a shade as beautiful as this. So I do love this eyeshadow palette, and I definitely see myself using this a lot for fall because out of the shades that are left in here, it is definitely a very fall-esque eyeshadow palette. So that is why this is coming in at number 1. So those are all the eyeshadow palettes that I have bought this year ranked. There are 15 in total, and again, like I said, I really do enjoy every single eyeshadow palette that I picked up so far. If you did like this video, I hope you will like it and subscribe before you go, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye!